How you spend your 4 years of college can have a drastic impact on your life's trajectory. I mean, just look at me. I went in thinking I was going to become a software engineer and came out a YouTuber. And I couldn't be more grateful. College is a transformative experience that allows us to become the best versions of ourselves. Academically, physically, mentally, almost every lee that you can think of. But it's also a stepping stone to our most ambitious goals and dreams. Whether you want to become a data scientist or a corporate lawyer, college will provide you with the foundational skills and experiences you need. But in order to gain these benefits, you need to know how to do college the right way. That's why I'm making this video to cover my best advice for each year of college, starting with none other than freshman year. Freshman year is an emotional roller coaster. You'll tackle some of the hardest classes you've ever taken while also making some of the best memories of your life. You'll feel homesick while finding new communities that feel like home, and you'll also feel much more accepted for who you are while also getting rejected from random clubs left and right. And that brings me to my first tip for freshman year: increase your rejection tolerance. See, college has a ton of opportunities, from new clubs to internships to research positions. But college also has a ton of students who want those opportunities. In high school, rejection feels like the exception, not the norm. If we want to join a club, we can. If we want to play a sport, we do. But in college, rejection is much more commonplace. At least it was in my experience. Maybe that's a skill issue, you guys tell me. But I say all of this not to scare you, nor to make you feel like you're not qualified or skilled enough for these opportunities, but to encourage you to keep going. In college, the issue is you simply have way more students interested in the same opportunities. Rejection ends up becoming more about luck than actual merit. And so the earlier you can internalize this and not take rejection personally, the faster you can actually land cool opportunities. It's all a numbers game. If you apply to a handful of clubs or dozens of internships, you will eventually land something. I promise you that. For example, I remember applying to dozens of internships my freshman year before finally landing a software engineering role at a startup. And that leads me to my second tip for freshman year: find something for the summer. So here's how the college to job pipeline usually works. You do something cool your freshman summer that lets you do something cool your sophomore summer, that lets you get an internship your junior summer, which if you crush will help you land that coveted return offer. Some students will do internships all 3 summers, some might do research and then an internship, and others might work on a personal project or startup. The point here is that you should simply leverage every summer to build your resume in some capacity, and it doesn't matter how. So to find these sorts of opportunities, whether internships or research, I highly recommend that you leverage 3 resources: upperclassmen, your career center, and career fairs. So upperclassmen often have the sauce. They can tell you where to apply, when to apply, and most importantly, how to apply. While most internship applications are pretty straightforward, some include interviews that require serious prep, especially in tech or consulting. Upperclassmen can often tell you how to prep for these or even do mock interviews with you. However, in addition to the sauce, upperclassmen have something else that's pretty valuable: referrals. In other words, they can refer you for an internship at a company they've worked at. Now, this won't guarantee you a position, but it will give you a leg up. Now, the second resource that you should leverage is your career center. Bless the career center, man. This place is super underrated. Not only will they often have a list of internship and research opportunities for you, but they can also review your resume for free. To any college student watching this who wants a job one day, please get resume feedback from your career center. I did this every single year in college. And you know what else I did every single year in college? Attend my career fair. Actually, we didn't have one my senior year because of COVID, but you get the point. So career fairs are the perfect chance to get face-to-face time with recruiters from some of the biggest companies across every industry. However, if after turning to these resources, you're still struggling to find opportunities, all hope isn't lost. My third tip for freshman year is to take advantage of your EDU email. Now, besides unlocking some of the craziest student discounts, your EDU email is a ticket to limitless opportunity. You can cold email almost any company, entrepreneur, or organization and immediately grab their attention, because the world loves to help young, ambitious people who put themselves out there. Through college in my early 20s, I emailed dozens of entrepreneurs I looked up to, some of whom even mentored me for a short period of time. At one point, believe it or not, I ended up getting on a call with the founder of a $30 billion company who also went to MIT. Now, was his company remotely related to education? Not at all. And was I trying to get a job? No. I just wanted to learn more about his journey. And I find that the more you lead with genuine curiosity, the more the world will reward you than if you're trying to constantly extract value. Now, beyond founders, there are some other people you should also get to know, which leads me to my fourth tip. Connect with your professors. As a freshman, you probably don't have any post-grad plans, and that's totally normal. But let's say one day you decide to apply for a master's program or a fellowship. You will most likely need a recommendation from one or more of your professors. So the earlier that you can build this connection, the better. And you can do so by staying after class, going to office hours, or joining your professor on a research project if they have one. Again, don't force or rush this. Simply lead with genuine curiosity and the connection will follow. Now, speaking of joining your professor on a research project, let's move on to sophomore year. So freshman year is like a sandbox that gives you room to mess up. Sophomore year, however, has less room for error. This brings me to my first tip for freshman year. Nail down RSL, or Research, Service, and Leadership. Regardless of what you want to do after college, it's important to build a track record in at least one of these areas. Doing so will make your profile so much more compelling to potential employers, admissions offices, or even fellowship committees. So let's quickly break down each part. Research shows intellectual vitality, and it's especially important if you're considering grad school. In other words, a master's or a PhD. As an undergrad, you're simply studying the existing literature in your field. But as a grad student, you are at the forefront of the literature in your field, quite literally pushing the boundary of knowledge. Pursuing a research project as an undergrad shows that you have the intellectual chops to become a grad student. And even if you don't publish a research paper, simply working in a lab or assisting with a professor's project demonstrates that you're capable of original thought, which is a very positive signal for master's and PhD programs. Now, the second part of RSL is service. So whereas research is more important if you want to go into academia over industry, I would say that service is important regardless of your future plans. Service is about giving back to your community, either literally in the form of community service, or by contributing your skills to causes, clubs, or organizations that make a difference. Examples might include tutoring younger students, volunteering in your city, or running a campus initiative. And people are drawn to people who showcase empathy and an ability to work towards something bigger than themselves. Which brings me to the final part of RSL, leadership. Like service, leadership is one of those things you want regardless of your goals. Now, when you think about leadership, your mind probably goes to being the president of a club, which yes, is a valid and impressive form of leadership, but it's not the only form of leadership. You can also showcase leadership by taking initiative. For example, you could build a website that helps students find free textbooks, or coordinate a fundraiser that raises thousands for a local food bank. As you're starting to notice, there is plenty of overlap between service and leadership. Now, there's another way that you can and probably should show leadership, which leads me to my next tip. Join an outlier club. An outlier club is something so different from everything else on your resume that when you tell people about it, they will be utterly confused but also amused. Now, this doesn't mean the outlier club has to be something weird or unusual in itself. It just has to be very different from your typical vibe. So if you're a longtime viewer, you probably already know what my outlier club was. That's right, dance. In the middle of all my tech and business activities, I decided to pursue dance. Now, did I continue it for long? Not at all. But taking the initiative to join exposed me to a totally new field, helped me meet new people, and made for a fantastic story. And that's important to remember because college isn't just some 4-year period to optimize every moment and decision for your career outcomes. It's also a time to have fun and learn more about yourself. And ironically, joining something like an outlier club can actually help you with your career as well because it makes your application more memorable and your interviews more fun. Now, speaking of fun, my third tip for sophomore year is to travel abroad. Now, this is something I really wanted to do but didn't get the chance for. However, if you're watching this video, you now know what to do. Once you enter your sophomore year, look into any study abroad programs that your school offers. MIT, for example, had something called MISTY, which was a fully funded international internship and research program. Students could spend a summer working in labs or companies abroad with all the expenses covered. My friends spent summers in the UK, Spain, India, and a bunch of other countries. And I kid you not, I have never felt more FOMO in my life. While I was working my grueling summer internship, which was still great by the way, I'd see Instagram stories of my friends living it up in Barcelona. I was tempted to book my flights right then and there. Now, traveling abroad is beneficial for many reasons, mostly because it helps you become a worldlier person, exposing you to an array of new cultures, customs, and languages. Now, while you should certainly travel abroad outside of school as well, doing so during college gives you built-in structure and community. You'll have friends to share the experience with, while the program itself handles all the logistics. But if you can't travel during the summer or simply don't want to, that leads me to my fourth tip for sophomore year. Start recruiting seriously. During freshman year, you're simply hunting for any opportunity that you can get. But during sophomore year, you now have much more access to formal internship programs and recruitment pipelines. But just note that recruiting starts earlier than you probably expect. Applications for tech companies open as early as August or September, and many close by October or November. And that's one mistake many students make. They think they have until the winter or even the spring to start looking for summer opportunities. No. Get to it. Our goal is to build up our resume to get that solid return offer, which brings me to junior year. But before we get there, let me tell you about something that's a total game changer for any year of college. Thanks to Google for sponsoring this video. Google Gemini. Think of Gemini as your all-in-one study assistant. You can upload class notes, problem sets, and even entire slide decks, and Gemini will break them down for you with step-by-step explanations. What's even cooler is that Gemini doesn't just explain, it helps you practice. You can turn your notes into custom quizzes or flashcards that specifically target your weaknesses, which is far more effective than just rereading your notes. Gemini also has deep research, which lets you do hours of research in minutes. It pulls info from all across the web and delivers a synthesized, comprehensive report, with citations and sources included. But if you'd rather not stare at a screen, Gemini's audio overviews feature can turn the material into a podcast. This way you can easily review while walking to class or hitting the gym. You can actually get an entire year of Gemini's Pro plan for free. It includes unlimited chat, image uploads and quiz generation, access to the 2.5 Pro model, deep research, notebook LM, and 2 terabytes of storage to top it all off. The offer is available to eligible college students until October 6th, so be sure to claim it using the link in my description. Alright, and with that, back to junior year. So your sophomore summer internship is critical to getting into an industry, but your junior summer internship is critical to staying in the industry. So that leads me to my first tip. Nail that return offer. Your performance during your junior summer internship will dictate whether or not you get that return offer. In other words, an offer to work at the company full-time after graduation. Landing that return offer depends on a mix of competence and likability. If you're extremely competent but not super likable, you will struggle to land that offer. But if you're extremely likable and not super competent, you'll also struggle to land that offer. Your competence is a reflection of your skill set. In other words, are you actually good at programming, data analysis, design, or whatever the job requires? Your likability, on the other hand, is a reflection of how you wield the skill set. In other words, are you collaborative? Do you finish work on time? Do you ask meaningful questions? And even more broadly, likability is just about being a pleasant person. Again, if you can lead with genuine curiosity and care, people will naturally be drawn to you. So now, while I was fully prepared to do another internship in my junior summer, COVID hit in March, so I was sent back home with a bunch of free time on my hands. So what did I do? Yes, I started posting to social media, as I've told you guys before, but I also became an absolute tryhard in all my classes, because I was thinking about getting my MBA. And that leads me to my second tip. Consider the value of grad school. Now, grad school isn't necessary for everyone, but junior year is when you should decide whether it's necessary for you. Most applications are due senior fall, so junior year is when you should craft a list of target schools, start prepping for exams like the GRE or GMAT, and line up professors who can write you strong rec letters. Now, if you're young and have no idea what grad school options are even on the table, let me break down the most popular paths. First, we have good old business school. Getting an MBA is a classic move for people who want to climb the corporate ladder, move into consulting, or launch a startup one day. Though I do think it's a bit overrated for that, and if you're curious why, maybe I can explain in the comments. Now, most people work a few years in industry before applying to business school, but you can also apply to a deferred MBA program that lets you lock in your spot while still in college. Second, we have law school. If you dream of closing deals like the next Harvey Specter, then maybe a JD is for you. This is the degree you want to get if you want to become an attorney, work in government, or go into corporate law. You'll need to take the LSAT and fill out your applications in the fall of senior year. So junior year is the time to start prepping. Third, there's medical school. If you're aiming to fulfill your parents' lifelong dream of becoming a doctor, you'll need to take the MCAT, get some clinical experience, and have some extremely strong science grades. The med school timeline kicks off right after junior year, so don't sleep on it. And then finally, we have PhD programs. Students who take this route are doing it for the love of the game. they find themselves so infatuated with the field that they want to pursue the highest level of academia. Applications are usually due senior year, and although they take longer, we're talking like 5 to 7 years, many PhD programs are fully funded, though you will have to live pretty frugally. Okay, now with all of that covered, grad school and industry aren't the only post-grad options, which brings me to my third tip. Look into fellowships. Fellowships are basically programs that give you funding to study, do research, or work on a project, sometimes in the US, sometimes abroad. For example, the Fulbright Fellowship pays for you to spend a year in another country teaching English or doing research. And unlike scholarships, which usually just cover tuition, fellowships often give you stipends, travel support, and connections you normally wouldn't have access to. However, that's what also makes fellowships far more competitive. Many of the biggest fellowships like Rhodes, Marshall, Truman, or Fulbright attract thousands of applicants for just a few hundred spots. And since their deadlines hit senior fall, junior year is when you should start prepping. And speaking of senior fall, let's not cover my best advice for senior year. Senior year, the 1 year of my college experience that was completely taken away from me. Don't worry guys, I'm not upset anymore, at least for the most part. The advice I'm about to give you here is what I would have done had COVID not ruined everything. So senior year of college is very different from senior year of high school. Although both are bittersweet, the world after high school still provides you with structure and community, but the world after college requires you to build that structure and community yourself, unless you're headed to grad school. Whenever I talk to new grads, one of the biggest things they miss about college is not just the people, but being within walking distance of people. For example, if you want to vent to a friend, you just walk to their room. If you want to play basketball, you just find your friends and go. If you want to get food, it's probably downstairs. But after college, it's hard to be as spontaneous because everyone has different schedules and more responsibilities. Plus, you might not even be in the same state, let alone the same city. I say this not to scare you because life after college also has a ton of upsides. But I say this to encourage you to soak it all in, which is my first tip for senior year. Enjoy the classes, the clubs, the dorms, and even the dining halls with the food that's super mid. And don't skip out on the senior traditions, things like senior week or senior trips. As cheesy as it sounds, these are the kinds of memories you will not forget. And speaking of memories you won't forget, my second tip is to book a graduation trip. This doesn't mean you need to book business class tickets to Hawaii, but even a local road trip will do. I think senior summer should be all about building memories because you're in this unique and limited period of your life when you don't have to worry about school or work. But there is one thing you have to worry about, which brings me to my third tip. Get your housing plan ready. First, if you still have the option to choose which city you want to live in, think very carefully with which city aligns with who you want to become and what you want to do. For example, if you're looking to establish yourself in finance, you'll probably want to end up in New York. If you're aiming to break into big tech or launch a startup, San Francisco is the place to be. Or if you want to be at the center of health and biotech innovation, then you can't beat Boston, though you can definitely beat it in terms of weather. After you sort out your city, you'll want to start looking into housing. Research neighborhoods so you know what's affordable and what your commute will actually be. The commute is such an important part because I remember my sophomore summer, I was traveling over an hour to work and back, which was brutal in the humid New York summer. Also, find potential roommates because splitting rent can make a huge difference in those first few years out of school when money is tight. Which leads me to my final tip for senior year. Learn the basics of adult money. Now that you've landed your first big boy job, it's time to start thinking about a 401k, investing, budgeting, taxes, and more. I've already uploaded a video where I cover some basic personal finance tips, but maybe it's time to go even deeper. Let me know in the comments. And with that, I've wrapped up my best advice for each year of college. I think this might be one of my longest videos yet, so if you have made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. If you've just started college, I wish you nothing but the best these next few years. But if you haven't started college yet, check out Next Admit for help with your application. Thanks for watching, best of luck with the new school year, and I'll see you again next week.